G'day and welcome to the Investor Motivation Podcast. And today we are fortunate enough to have Lindy Ellis from Home Instead. Welcome, Lindy.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Obviously, we're going to have a discussion around services that are provided to people at home. That's obviously where probably more, people more than likely like to be for longer rather than in a nursing home is probably the next step. But Lindy, can you start off by giving us a little bit of background of your work experience in the sector?
Yeah. I started my working life as a nurse at the Wimmera Base Hospital and continued working there. I worked in aged care and worked then in all aspects of the hospital over the
Yep.
years. I then moved out into community and worked as an Aboriginal health worker for 4 years, and then decided that that's where I wanted to sort of stay more out in community rather than in a in a medical setting. And so, through mental health, drug and alcohol, and all those other aspects out there, I ended up as a carer support person for people with who had family members with mental health issues, and that's when I started with the girls that are here now at Community Options. So I was um, hired by Ballarat Health Services then, but the ladies that I work with now were part of Community Options, which
Right.
where I started my aged care
Yes.
case management. Yeah,
Right. So now, obviously, yeah, community options now. Home instead is the business, and I suppose that the history. A lot of these services in the past were provided by local councils. Mostly, there's been a swing to more private sector over the time, Lindy.
there's from what since I've been working in the aged care sector, there has always been sort of two components, but the majority of people would have understood or would have had what was the council services, which was Commonwealth Home Support Program. But there's always been another bucket of money. It's had different names, and it was delegated out differently. But there was always that capacity to provide um, a bucket of money to an individual to purchase services and equipment for them to remain at home.
Right. And so that ultimate goal for the government is to ease the pressure on the aged care, the nursing homes and those facilities that just doesn't have capacity.
No, and nor does the government have capacity to have lots of people in care as well, because care in itself is quite heavily subsidised in
Yes.
some areas. So it is a financial benefit for people to remain living at home in the government's eyes.
Right. And from, I suppose, a personal point of view for ourselves many years down the track, our family, our clients, would you say, Lindy, that they've got an overriding want and objective to stay at home as well?
Look, we're an ageing population, and especially in the Wimmera area, the demographic is quite an older population. But the government has also informed us for many years now that we are ageing population. So they, of course, will be needing to put um, more services, more money into that area, the region, to ensure that people stay at home, and it's also safely at home. So
Right.
that's the other thing that we need to also keep at top of mind.
Right. So, what does that mean physically? Is that and part of your role? And we'll dive a bit deeper into all the bits that you do. But part of that role is that to going into the household and say, right, how do we make this safer for our clients?
Yeah. So look, we're heavily regulated, and there's a lot of mandatory paperwork that we have to do. There's also lots of risk. We've also got to understand and mitigate as much risk as possible. They are now wanting a clinical overlay on all clients that we deal with. So we have to ensure that we understand what we are providing for the person. We've got to understand what the person's needs are, and more their needs are complex. They've got complex health needs, they've got complex family dynamics, and all that. So we take all that into account as well.
Right.
We at home, I'm sorry, I'm sort of butting in a bit, but we at home instead, probably one of the things that we are very proud of is that majority of our case managers have got nursing background. So
Right.
we have that medical background, which I think puts us on the front foot because we can probably see things before they actually occur. So we can intervene hopefully at the right time.
Right. Now, Lindy, from a, you said obviously safety and risk are front of mind. When you're doing an assessment of someone's home, can you give me some examples of what you're physically looking for to mitigate or to be safer and less risk?
Yeah. So the one of the things I actually do an intake risk assessment, which looks at, and it's just a conversation I have with people. But one of them is looking at the home environment. So just having a look at the environment to make sure that it's reasonably safe, and if it's not, what are some of the things that we can perhaps offer to mitigate that risk. The other thing is that the person is needs to be willing to utilise the home care package, not just have a home care package for the sake of it, but they're willing to utilise it for services and equipment. So it's no good saying you're going to have a home care package, but you don't want any services.
Okay. So is this where sometimes you have family members saying, mum and dad need extra help, and mum and dad are stubborn as hell, and they and they don't want the help, although everyone around them knows that they need.
Yeah, and but then I also go in there and I do have hard conversations. I'm not frightened of having a hard conversation. So, a lot of the time we can actually work around that, and they do understand that by taking an offer of help is timely, because that is when the help's going to help them stay at home.
Yes. Yeah. And
We get around it a lot of the time. So, usually it'll be, well, why don't we just use some home care, and that, and there'll be that pushback saying, oh, but I can do, yes, but you really shouldn't be doing the heavy vacuuming, which a lot of people shouldn't be
yes.
doing heavy vacuuming, and they shouldn't be bending down trying to clean the the toilet or the shower. So we do it by trying to get services in, because 9 times out of 10, once they get the services in, they absolutely love their caregivers, the
Yes.
people that are coming in. They really appreciate the friendship that's been built, the relationships that are forged, to keep them at home. So, yeah.
Right. So it's not just about it. There's an emotional side to this one where they've got people that are in their home consistently throughout the week, and these are people that they're getting to know and like, and it's company.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
So one of the biggest issues that I've seen, not just in aged care, but in mental health, when I worked in mental health, is the tricky situation of isolation. So people that think that because they're at home, they're doing well with ticking boxes, but they don't go out and they don't necessarily connect with people. Their family are away. They might get a phone call, even if it was daily, but still not um, that physical contact with a person, and that in itself is quite dangerous
Yes.
as well. So that's where our caregivers are just beautiful like that. They really, they're handpicked, they're beautiful people, and they're
Yes.
people that we know are able to start those relationships and be respectful. Yeah,
Yeah. I think one thing I've worked out that I always assumed as a younger person, as we got older, we became more self confidence, more self aware, and insecurities and all those things and anxieties just drift away. But
you become wise. Is that what you're saying?
well, in theory, that was the case, but I remember one of my oldest clients got to about 103, but the reflection that she had as she got older, as her world sort of closed in a bit, the anxiety actually lifted, the regrets, and that the mental illness sort of you know got worse. Yeah.
Yeah, anxiety is probably one thing that we see a lot in older people, and of course depression, because their world is shrinking, and it's shrinking because of
Yes.
loss of friends, loss of capacity to do things, loss of, so much loss in their life, Yeah, so that's where um, the service might be home care, but it's someone else, and they start conversations and they do all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that forging of relationships is really, building trust,
Yep.
sharing their heart. That's one of they're the foundations that Home Instead build their caregiving on.
Right. Lindy, can you just give me a note, I suppose, just paint a picture of what the standard household looks like in terms of, we're talking about often a widowed lady, and so yeah, obviously age, what the demographic looks like, and what services are physically provided, and this is see the bit that I don't really understand well enough to say, well, where do the services start and where does it stop?
Yeah. So usually, a household in the Wimmera is usually a single person household, or a household where there is a husband and wife, or a couple,
Yep.
but there's a bit of codependency going on, so it's really hard to work out initially who does what and who hasn't got capacity to do certain things because it's picked up by the other person. So it gets a little bit complicated. But they usually own their own home, which is what I find here. That's just in the Wimmera
Yep.
that they usually find they have their own home. So even though we do have people in rentals, like in the public housing system, the majority of people that we do have own their own home.
Right.
So yeah, so that's a bonus in that they're not at risk of becoming homeless at
Yep.
any point at that time. So the services. So the next part of the question was about services that can be offered. So services are they're sort of like they've got a dual role, as I've discussed before. So the services that under the guidelines of the home care package are things like cleaning. They can do the laundry. They can iron. They can arrange for dry cleaning to happen. They can have medication management. They can have district nursing coming in. They can have allied health. They can have emotional support. So we have men who are older men, well in their 80s, 90s, even though there's a couple of them that still have their wives. But we have a male who will take them out for a drive or companionship and take them for a coffee and take them out and about. And the feedback we get from these men is amazing.
Okay.
These men can be the most resistive to asking for help and accepting help.
Right. Is it so, Lindy? It sounds like we're not just talking about one person coming in on a regular basis. There can be
Oh, no,
multiple
no.
people doing
So
different things.
the
Okay.
case manager. So after me, there's an allocation of a case manager, which we try to match with the case managers we've got, like personalities, knowledge, and the best fit.
Yep.
We feel that works really well. For that person. So then the case manager will do a home visit and look and discuss what's going on, what they think might be useful, what would they like to try, what they wouldn't like to try. And that all becomes enmeshed in what we call a care plan.
Right.
So that's a mandatory component that we have. And that care plan is run by the client. So it's client directed care,
Hmm.
and the case manager ensures that there's some goals. So that's that real stuff that the case managers have to do, um, and and that usually gets so because it's government money, we also will get audited
Right.
every so often. So we have to tick boxes to make sure that our clients are getting the best care, and it's all within the regulations.
Right. So, so for say a couple that love being at home and they're a long way off, needing aged care, but they may not want to do the heavy vacuuming, do the clean the bathrooms, some of that hard yards, or the husband's probably past climbing the ladders or doing the hedge. So
They they should be past it, but they usually do still climb ladders. Yes.
they'll still have a crack. But so there's people that, obviously might be at the start of needing extra help. It can start off at those levels. Now, whether they're an age pension couple or fully self-funded, you guys can still be there to help and do case management around for those type of people as well.
So there's two buckets of money. The first one is the old council one, which is
Yes.
now Greg's Community Health. They have some funding, and Community Options have some funding, and it's entry level services. So it's just basic services. These people are assessed
Yep.
by a team at hospital, and they are given referral codes for services. That has no case management. So it's usually an hour of service per fortnight,
Yep.
and they pay for it. So it's about $11 an hour of service,
Right.
heavily subsidised by the government, and it is not income tested at all, or asset tested, that one.
Right.
However, when you then need perhaps a little bit more coordination and more service delivery and more flexibility in your service delivery, then a home care package would be the next option. And that it doesn't, when you get assessed, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a home care package, but we usually help these people get make the phone call to my aged care, and for the home care package is income tested only, not assets.
Right.
So that's where I have to make a bit of an idea about whether, when people present as part pensioners, it's about, well, how much pension do you get? And then if they give me a round figure of, I don't know, $700 a fortnight, then they're pretty right. They probably would not get an income tested fee, and it is their income. So even if they've got superannuation or they've got shares, it's what the shares make, not the value of the shares.
Right. So it's not deemed as such. It's more about the physical income that comes into the family house.
Comes in, yeah,
Yes.
and that's the one. So with the home care package, it is income test. There is an income tested fee if you go over what the government deems is
Right.
that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, sometimes if a person gets a higher level of package and there is an income tested fee, it is still worth their while, because even though they have to pay for some of it, so if they get say level 4 at $59,000 a year, and they have to pay $5,000 of that, they 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 pay $5,000 of that 59,000.
Right.
Still worth their while to have that package, because they can get $54,000 worth of service.
Wow. And the federal government is funding that. That's government. Okay.
Yeah, the government will say, if you earn too much money, we're going to say you have to pay, I don't know, $5.20 a day, say.
Okay.
If you're a level 4 package and the government's offering you a $59,000 package of money, it will still be worth your while,
Right.
especially services to keep people at home.
Yep.
It
Now,
really, yeah.
Lindy, you mentioned level 4.
Levels,
How many levels are there? And is it
there's 4.
there's 4 of them?
There's,
Okay.
yeah,
And uh, at level 4, and so say people that are fully self-funded, they still gets it's still subsidised somewhat.
yes, because if they're fully self-funded, it's the amount of income they get.
Right.
It's not, yeah, they don't have to get a pension. It's
Yes.
just the amount of money they get per
Yeah.
year from their super.
Okay. And it's given that it's so costly to have people in aged care facilities, the government is still prepared to provide substantial funding. And that's something I've always recommended for my clients, particularly that as they age, and the one spot that you want to be is home. You don't want to be in a facility, and that if it just costs a bit of money to do that, then that's fine. You can afford to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely, and especially at the higher levels, I think it's worthwhile.
Right.
We also provide private service anyway, and we have a couple of people that yeah, they'll pay full cost for just a private service.
Okay, so that might be for people, Lindy, that don't go and have an assessment. They are still fine. They just need some extra help and just want to pay for it.
Or yeah, exactly. Or yeah, they have had an assessment for their income, and their income is it could be up to $35 a day, and it's probably worth their while just to go private service as
Right.
required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which is, I suppose, is that sort of no different to say, just say, right, we now get a guy to do the hedges and the lawns and the gutters.
And help some home care. We can do yeah that, and that would still be worth that person's while
Right.
to
Yeah.
stay yeah to pay for private service yeah for that. If it got down, and this is where it becomes difficult too, and it just depends on the person. It's a bit like what you're saying. If you want to stay at home, um, it is cheaper,
Mhm.
and it's cheaper for the person too because there's all this other stuff that happens if they do have to go to care. So that's another separate lot of financial dilemma that the family have to go through. So, but level one, level two, sometimes they're just better off to have some private service if they've got a really big income tested family
Yes.
until such time as that family member perhaps has an episode or gets unwell, and then we can apply for a high level of package, and then it might be worth their while.
Right. So even if it's just initially some, doing the bathrooms and a bit of
Yeah,
vacuuming,
and a bit of gardening.
yep, they're best still to come to you because it gets you in the system and you can help with the progression over time.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And we monitor our clients as well. So part of the case manager is probably not the person they remember the most because it's their beautiful caregivers that go in that they remember
Yeah.
because they're the ones giving that care. The case manager sits in the background making decisions and trying to make everything work, and they're also the one that has to have those hard decisions
Right.
and conversations, but they also will be the ones that monitor how that person's going health wise. So if we see there's been a decline, it is up to us then to ring My Aged Care and do all the paperwork required for a request for a reassessment.
Right.
So we do all that.
Yes. Yeah, Lindy, obviously, Wheels on Meals, Meals on Wheels has been about forever, and everyone's probably volunteered at some point in their lives with that. As is that something that you guys coordinate as well? That you'll right,
So meal delivery, food in general doesn't actually come under the government guidelines for home care packages. However, delivered meals, such as Meals on Wheels, in Horsham here, it's Laneway because the hospital don't do the Meals on Wheels anymore. There's
right,
only one provider. And there are, if people see it on the television, there are some meals such as Light and Easy,
yep,
and there's Meals in a Moment, and they also will do home care packages. So
okay,
that means that the package will pay for 70% of the meal, and then the client has to pay 30. So they probably end up paying just as much as they would if they were on that entry level CHSP. So about $10, $11 a meal.
right, okay,
Because it's with a home care package, Rob, all services are full cost.
yep,
So instead of $11 an hour of that they might be getting for home care that they pay, when it comes to a home care package, it's up to about $75 an hour of service. Podiatry, district nurse, all full cost, which are around about 110 dollars an hour of service. So and meals are the same. So a delivered meal would be around about $28 a meal.
oh, okay, right,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. Yeah,
But
so that's the other thing that, yeah, even though they're getting $59,000 worth from the government,
yes,
all the services that come out of that $59,000 a full cost. What I would have to pay if I wanted to go and get my toenails podiatry, or if I wanted to go to the district nurse. Yeah, that's and day centre's another one.
Right.
Full
So yes, full cost, but subsidised substantially.
only for that entry level. That Commonwealth Home Support Program is heavily
Okay.
subsidised. Home care packages are not subsidised; it's full cost,
Right. Okay.
but it's coming out of the home care package, not the client's pocket.
Yes. Yep. And Lydia, obviously, there's a lot of complexity here, and you've worked in this area for decades, and this it probably just highlights the importance of when people are needing some help that they need to reach out and get advice from people in the industry, because
Mm,
you'll
exactly.
know all the tricks and what they can and can't do.
And there's a lot of jargon. It's like lots of areas, probably even in your area as well. There's a lot of terminologies and jargon that we all use that we understand, but not necessarily
Yeah.
the person out in the street. So one of the things that we offer here at Home Instead, and my role is that if anyone isn't on my aged care or want to be, start that journey, I'm happy to provide a free service and support them in getting onto my aged care.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's just a free service that we provide here.
Right. Fantastic.
And for people to talk, a little bit like, well, we're looking at this, that, and the other. Do you think that it's going to be wise for us to start this journey? Or, so
Yep.
we can provide a certain amount of information, but a lot of the times when it does come to finances, we do say you need to go back to your financial advisor.
Right. Now, I see a lot of activity behind you there, Lindy, but when it comes to labour shortage, and you say you've just got some really nice people that go out and care and look after and do the work, how, obviously finding those right people and then retaining them, is that tough at the moment?
No, we've been very lucky. We have got sensational caregivers, and I think word of mouth has always been our best form of advertising. So the ladies and gentlemen that we have on board are quality staff. They're all trained.
Yes.
So that's the other big thing that the government demands, that the caregivers are trained. So we have our business manager, and she also is our recruitment officer, Fiona Welsh. So she's the lady that does the recruitments for the caregivers.
Yep.
But the caregivers are also they're actually they're the base of our business and how we celebrate this business. So they're the main people that we celebrate. Not me, not Kerry, not but they're the ones. So
Yes.
we have caregiver of the month. So we nominate, we celebrate. We that then goes to a national level where they get caregiver of the they go in for caregiver of the year at a national level. That's Australia wide. We celebrate with a caregiver newsletter. We have the caregivers are part of the client's journey as far as giving input and feedback if they feel that they might notice that Mrs. Smith has knocked a leg and there's a wound on it. We've got this program where they ring us, and then they write it into the program, and then we deal with it that way. So there's really good relationship with the case manager
Yes.
and the caregivers.
Fantastic. Gee, the one thing that probably highlights here is not only the need to get help and advice from people like yourself, Lindy, but how lucky are we that we live in Australia where we have these services to help
Exactly,
people.
and I don't think people sort of understand that either.
Yeah.
That we we can that the government do provide really good support
Yes.
in this sector, and they really do.
Yeah. Lindy,
And they try to give as much to. They try to sort of be equitable in who gets. They want as many people who need it to be able to get the
yes.
services and the care. Yeah,
Fantastic. And Lindy, I suppose there's a crossover where a client might get beyond the care of what you can do there, and it needs to go up a level, potentially into a facility where it's just become too dangerous to be at home. What does that process look like for you? How do you go about that in communication with family?
Yeah, so it's case manager. So the case manager or the care manager that is being allocated to that person. We as a case management team, we have our weekly meetings. So we talk and seek advice from each other around the best way to go about doing some things that need to be done about how how best to provide this service for a person. So when it comes to um, a person who is needing care, we are very respectful, one for the person who's needing care, but also to the family. But we do, with the client's consent. We always use consent. We have a chat to the family about, maybe going into some respite. So respite is, we like the idea of planned respite, where a person can go into care for a couple of weeks and then come back home.
Yep.
So they get used to it. They get used to knowing that the care facility's there and it's safe and it's whatever, but they go home again. COVID hasn't been our best buddy with that because there hasn't been, it's not the beds, it's staffing in these hospitals and that. So there's not all the beds aren't always open. So a lot of planned respite is, it can be difficult to arrange. But it is up to the case manager to have those hard conversations with family, to monitor, to provide offer advice, to even help in some cases, especially when families are living out of town and overseas, that we will start the process and get some paperwork going. But we also advise the family that that is part of their role.
Yep.
That this is your part, in that if your mum and dad need to go to care, then you really need to be part of that transition.
Right. And what's generally the trigger for a couple or a single person at home? What's the trigger for them to get in contact with home instead? How do they get to you guys?
To start the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if so, there'd be two reasons why people contact us. One is that they're not even on My Aged Care at all, so they can ring us up and we can help them get on to My Aged Care
Yep.
and ask for an assessment. Now, like I said, it could be just the entry level assessment or it could be the home care package assessment. The other reason they ring us is they've already had an assessment and they've got their letter from the government to say you have got a home care package. And they can ring us then and we will talk to them about what a home care package is about, what would they want from it, all that sort of stuff. And then we will accept or not accept, like it just depends on whether they want to accept services and, yeah, the capacity.
Right.
Because sometimes we have people from um, conniver up that way where sometimes we just can't even get caregivers up that way. So we can't accept them. We can't just sit there taking people's money
Yes.
if we can't provide a service.
Right. And just for the listeners, we're rural Victoria, so we're 3 hours from Melbourne,
Yep,
and Horsham is a small town of probably 20,000 people, but services a large area around us, probably up to Conniva, which
yep,
is, Hopetoun, an hour and a quarter, hour and a half away.
yeah. And it is rural remote. So, yes, it is a rural remote part of Australia. And that's how the government deems us
Yep.
when it comes to, yeah, people getting supplements, viability supplements for living out of town. But Kerry's homestead goes right up to Mildura,
Right. Yep.
but we can't do that. We just go we go as far as we can if we can offer a
Yep.
service. So if we can get two or three people in one area and they've got decent package, we can, because they have to pay for your kilometres as well.
Yes.
So for the caregiver to get there. So it's the kilometres and the time for the caregiver to get there, the service, and the time and the kilometres to get back. So If we can get two or three people in the same area, they can share the kilometres and the
Okay.
time. So that's up to the case manager to sort of sort that out
Yeah.
as well.
Great. All right. So it sounds like you guys are very good at looking after your clients. You look after your caregivers, who are the champions of your business, who
They
are at the
certainly are.
who are at the coalface and looking after people, which is what it's all about. And
Exactly.
and keeping people where the government want them to be and where ultimately they want to be for as long as
Of
possible.
course. Of course. Yep. And I think one of the things that I just absolutely love, I mean, I've had two of my lovely men have just gone to care, and the best thing you can get feedback from is, "Oh, thanks, Lindy. You know, I don't know if I couldn't have done it without you," or something like that. So, yeah, and yeah, I love being those people's care manager.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They're,
yeah.
they're not just clients.
It's an absolute honour to be that person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Or you obviously love what you do, Liddy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you've got obviously a lot of knowledge there, and it's really highlighted to me, given me a really good idea of what you do, which will help me with my discussions with my clients as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy.
Thank you.
Speak to you
Thanks, Rob.
soon. See ya.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.